Hey everybody, it's Lori here with my April reading wrap up. In the month of April, I read 6 books. 4 of those were ebooks, one was a physical book, and one was an audiobook. So I'm just going to go through the books briefly, what I thought about them, a little bit about the book, and then it's going to be kind of a shorter video, I think, because I just did not have that many books. So I'm going to kind of start with the romance novels I've read because I don't normally read a lot of romance novels. And this month I read at least 3. There's a couple more with some romance elements that aren't strictly romance novels as well. I don't know. I've been in a romance kick recently. In February, I read an awful lot. I'm not sure how many I read in March, but April again, I had quite a few. So the first book I read in April was called 10 Blind Dates by Ashley Elston. And this is a YA romance novel. I picked this up because I was watching a video on Kiki Chanel's channel, and she brought up that she really enjoyed this book. And I was like, okay, I need a book. I don't have any ideas. So I picked it up. So basically, the premise of this book is our main character is a senior in high school, and she has a serious boyfriend. She has an older sister who is married and expecting a baby. And so it all takes place around Christmas time. Her parents go to visit her sister, who is on bed rest with kind of complications with the pregnancy. And she is going to stay at her grandma's house. Now, she has this huge extended family that all lives near each other. They live a different town away, so most of the people live in this other town that she goes to visit. And one of the reasons she decides to stay home or stay with her grandparents is that she hopes to spend some time with her boyfriend before, they start going off to college. She's, of course, doing the college applications and all of that. So she calls up her boyfriend, and he's not as thrilled as she thought he was going to be. And so she goes to meet him at a party, and she overhears him talking to a friend about how he thought being apart would be good because it could be like a trial breakup. So that ticks her off, and she breaks off the relationship with him. And then her grandma comes up with this idea where they're going to set her up on 10 blind dates during the time she's there. So she picks out 10 days of the, I don't know, maybe 13 or 14 days. She might be there for about 2 weeks, for her to have dates. And of course, there's some holidays in here as well. And then the extended family gets to sign up to set her up with somebody. So it's kind of a hilarious premise with this grandma, like, starting this whole thing. And she's got some cousins that are around her age that live close by that she used to be close to, and they've grown apart. And they kind of reconnect through this as well. So it's a very cute story. Overall, a pretty tame romance novel. There is one date where the cousin she refers to as the Evil Joes, her twin cousins. They're like Mary Jo and I don't remember, something like that. They both had Joe in their name. The one date where they're kind of mean and send her on this date that ends up being terrible. Other than that, like, all of the dates are very cute, just little dates that she has with the different people, and it has a very cute little ending. I thought this was a really cute book. I recommend it. I recommended it to my girls. I think that this one's fine for teens anyway. And then the other 2 romance novels I read are by Helen Huang, and they're 2 in a series. The first is The Kiss Quotient, and the second is The Bride Test. Now, these aren't usually my types of romance novels. Again, romance is not my normal genre anyway, but they're pretty steamy. They have a lot of sex in them. So, fair warning, I would not recommend these to my kids, but I believe it's Heather at Bookables reviewed these quite a while ago, and I just remember her enjoying them, but saying they are kind of steamy romances. How I ended up with these is we've been watching Downton Abbey with the girls, and Eva doesn't like Anna and Bates, even though she usually likes grumpy sunshine pairings. And honestly, I didn't know there was such a thing as a grumpy sunshine pairing, so I was looking up grumpy sunshine romance novels because I felt like reading a romance novel. And the one that was suggested in most of the places that I tried to get was unavailable on the library website, so I have a hold on it. I can't remember the name of it, but this came up as a suggestion instead. The Kiss Quotient did. So I went ahead and got that one, and I enjoyed it so much I went straight into the next one. So basically, the Kiss Quotient has a female protagonist, and she is on the autism spectrum. I believe her mom said her diagnosis was Asperger's, but that has been kind of rolled into the autism spectrum these days. And she is brilliant and successful, and just not successful in relationships. And so her mom starts getting into that I'd like grandchildren someday sort of thing. And so Anna's like threatening to set her up with people, basically. So she decides she needs to get some practice. And so she hires a male escort originally to teach her how about sex, because her experiences in that have been pretty terrible. But in the end, she realizes she really just needs like a practice relationship. So she kind of hires him to do the boyfriend thing to help her figure out how to navigate relationships. So they have to kind of navigate this very difficult difference in, he's struggling to make ends meet, and that's why he's escorting due to a variety of circumstances, and he has some really terrible stuff going on in his family, and she is extremely successful and well off, but just has absolutely no social skills when it comes to dating. So I thought it was cute. I really enjoyed both of the characters. Like not being a sex in books kind of person, there's a lot of sex in this one. The second in the series, for quite a while there wasn't, and then we got into the sex portion of the book. But like for this one, she hires a male escort, so obviously it's a little cruder than most of the books that I enjoyed. But I really liked our protagonist. I kind of enjoyed the love interest. He had a lot of stuff that made him more appealing of a person, even though he's like kind of on face value not the sort of person that you would connect with, because he's working as a male escort and so forth. But anyway, so that was the Kiss Quotient. Now the Bride Test is a companion novel, and the main character in that is a cousin of the male love interest in the Kiss Quotient. He is on the autism spectrum as well, and they're Vietnamese, and his mom goes back to Vietnam to find him a bride, and she brings over this woman, younger woman, who has a child, but she hasn't told them about the child yet, back home from a failed relationship. And the idea is to try to get them interested in each other, and so she has basically the summer, and then if she doesn't marry him on X date, then she has to go back to Vietnam. So I really liked this one. I liked the male character, Kai, I think is how you would pronounce it. I'm not really sure since I read this as an ebook. And then our female character has a couple different names because she kind of changes her name when she comes to America, and then ends up changing it back towards the end. But she is a poorer girl. She's from a more rural, more poor family. She's working as a cleaner in the hotel where the mother of the main character is kind of interviewing girls to see if she can find a possible bride for her son. So this one, there's a lot of miscommunications, but actually in both novels, because of either cultural differences or just not wanting to share the diagnosis or not understanding the diagnosis of autism. So I liked, I think, The Bride Test a little bit better than the Kiss Quotient, but they were both cute books. And there's a third one that's supposed to come out eventually, so I will probably read that when that one comes out. I also read on an ebook a mystery novel. I read The Franchise Affair by Josephine Tey. This is the third book in the Inspector Alan Grant series, which that series is the one that A Daughter of Time is part of. I think that's book 8, so I've been reading the other books because that's one of my favorite books ever. But this one's interesting. Detective Grant is in it, but he really does not play a major role. So basically, what happens is in this small town, this woman and her mother are accused of kidnapping a girl and holding her hostage. Well, not really hostage, but not letting her leave, trying to keep her as a servant. And so the younger, middle-aged maybe, the adult daughter of the older woman contacts a lawyer in the little town who mostly does estate work. He's not in criminal practice at all, and asks for his help. So he comes when Inspector Grant comes to talk to them to find out if there's anything to this story. And it just kind of progresses from there. This young girl is missing, and everything she has said they've been able to find in this house, from the type of suitcases there were in the attic, all of these details that she wouldn't have been able to know because this house is behind like this gate, so you can't really see anything. So she shouldn't be able to know these things without having had been there. So we have this small town lawyer figuring out how to defend them and trying to solve the mystery. So between him doing some sleuthing and him also hiring a private detective to help on it, eventually they do kind of solve what was actually going on with this girl and with this woman and her mother. So I enjoyed it. I mean, it was a little different because I kind of expect detective novels to have the detective in them more than this one did, but I kind of enjoyed that he was a little bit more of a side character and you didn't get into his thoughts as much as you do in the first 2 books in the series. So I did enjoy The Franchise Affair. I have enjoyed all of the books I've read by Josephine Tey. The next book I read is one of the books that I picked out for my Modern Mrs. Darcy Reading Challenge for 2021. And this was a book that Eva chose for me. And it's Among the Beasts and Briars. It's a YA fantasy novel. And in this novel, there's a cursed wood and a young woman, she's late teens probably, is the daughter of the royal gardener, and she's best friends with the princess that's about to become queen. And at the coronation, this whole curse situation that has already been around just kind of comes into the kingdom. It's always stayed out of the kingdom before this. And so she, our main character, the gardener's daughter, has to go try to find this lost city that is kind of fabled, that nobody knows if it really exists or not, to try to get them to help her. So she has to go through this enchanted, cursed wood. She has some magical powers that she doesn't really understand, and she has a couple of companions, and one of them is a bear and the other one is a fox, but then there's some magic stuff that happens that changes one of her companions quite a bit. So this was a little bit of a slow starter for me, and I don't really have a good reason why. Maybe I just wasn't in the mood when I started it, but once I got about halfway through, really just from there on, I just kind of got through it very quickly in a day or 2. So this one's very cute, a nice YA fantasy book that I think would be fine for most preteens and teens, as long as they don't get too easily scared. There is some like curses and gruesomeness that occurs, but overall I think that it's a pretty tame fantasy novel that's a lot of fun. And then the last book that I read, I actually listened to this as an audiobook, and that's Rebecca. I was doing this for the Close Reads podcast. They finished a long time ago. I'm a big slacker, so I just finished this past month. And I started out reading the book, and I was just making no progress. And then there was an Audible sale, and it was one of those 2-for-1 credit sort of deals. And there was one thing that my husband Brett wanted, and then there was a Rebecca available as well, so I got the audiobook through Audible. Very good narration. I'm not sure who the narrator was, but it's got the like new Netflix series cover art on it. So this is so good. I loved the ending so much. But what we have in here is we have an unnamed narrator who is kind of remembering her life before. So she's older now, and she's living in a hotel with her husband, and they don't like to talk about England because of Manderley, which was the house that she lived at as a young bride. So then we kind of go back in time to her meeting Maxim de Winter, who she ends up marrying, but he had a first wife named Rebecca, and Rebecca just haunts them the entire book, and it's super creepy. It's a gothic style novel, so super creepy. All the vibes of a gothic novel, and our narrator, our main character, is like her own worst enemy. She won't get out of her own way in a lot of ways because she's so intimidated by Rebecca, even though Rebecca was dead before she even met her husband. So, and then the ending, like, it ended perfectly. So this book has a perfect ending. I highly recommend. I'm trying to get my whole family to read or listen to it. The audiobook's really well done, so listening is a great option for this one. So those were the books that I read in the month of April. If you have anything you'd like to say about these or any suggestions for me, please let me know below in the comments. Otherwise, feel free to subscribe if you like reading wrap-ups and occasional book hauls and pretty much nothing else, because I'm pretty lazy these days. Feel free to do so. And otherwise, I will see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.